About 6 months ago, I decided to spend a weekend at a vintage cabin in the woods. I was 32 and thought it would inspire my travel blog. At first, everything felt perfect. The cabin had a cozy charm and a beautiful view of the lake. I planned to write and recharge. That peaceful feeling didn't last long. My first evening was simple. I made a cup of tea and sat on the creaky porch, soaking in the quiet sounds of the woods. It was too quiet, actually. Later, I curled up with my laptop, but then I heard faint tapping on the windows. I figured it was just branches swaying in the wind. I was focused on my writing, convincing myself it was nothing. But the tapping returned. This time, it felt more deliberate. Around midnight, I couldn't ignore it anymore. My heart sped up as the taps persisted. I thought about checking outside, but felt silly. Maybe it really was just a branch. When I turned off my laptop and lay in bed, the shadows in the corners moved in a way that didn't seem right. I was just tired, I told myself. I flipped on the small light at my bedside. My heart raced. Shadows danced, and I could not shake the fear. Morning came, and I blamed my nerves on lack of sleep. I needed space, so I decided to explore. The woods were dense and eerie, filled with towering pine trees. My unease from the night before nagged at me, but I tried to shake it off. Then I found strange symbols carved into the bark of trees. It sent chills down my spine. Maybe it was just graffiti, I thought, and laughed it off. Still, it bothered me. As night fell, I settled in again. The same tapping started, returning like a bad dream. I also saw flickers of light outside. My heart raced again. My curiosity clashed with fear, but I couldn't resist looking. Peering through the window, I saw nothing at first. Just shadows shifting under the moonlight. But then I thought I saw something moving. As the hours dragged on, my anxiety surged. It felt like I was being watched. I thought I was overreacting. Suddenly, I heard footsteps on the porch. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the door. When I opened it, there was nothing, just silence. I stepped back inside to feel safer, but when I glanced out again, I swore I saw a figure standing among the trees, staring back at me. I shouldn't have felt drawn to it, but something inside urged me closer. Then, in a flash, it was gone. I turned to run inside, but something darted behind a nearby tree. I was alone in that cabin, and it terrified me. I left early the next morning. The questions haunted me. What had I really experienced that weekend? Was it all in my head, or was something truly lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to discover its secrets? I still don't know. The days passed after I returned home. I tried to push away my memories of the cabin, but each night I couldn't help but think about what I had seen. I went back to my normal routine, but I felt different, more cautious. I avoided places that reminded me of those woods. I thought I had made peace with it all. Then one evening, my friend Sarah invited me out for coffee. She had been trying to get me out of the house for weeks. As we sat at a small cafe, I told her about my weekend getaway. When I mentioned the symbols on the trees, her eyes widened. "You know, there are stories about those woods," she said, lowering her voice. "People disappear in those areas. Some think it's the spirits of the land, maybe trying to protect something." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. I had been ignoring the unsettling feeling all this time. "What stories?" I asked, feeling a mix of curiosity and dread. "Some say a cult used to do rituals there. They carved those symbols into the trees. They say if you see them, it means you've been marked." I laughed it off, but I wasn't really convinced. "It's probably just a prank," I replied, but the thought made my stomach turn. After that conversation, I found it hard to shake the sense of urgency. I needed to go back to that cabin, but not for the reasons I had before. It was more than a blog now. It was about answers. I gathered my courage and made a plan to return. The following weekend, I drove back. The road to the cabin felt longer this time, each mile a reminder of the supernatural weight I had left behind. When I arrived, the air was thick with silence. I noticed how the woods seemed even denser, shadows almost looming like an old friend. It felt different, but I pushed aside my instincts and entered the cabin. That night, I armed myself with a flashlight and my camera. I wanted evidence this time. If I saw anything strange, I would document it. As I sat on the porch, the familiar tapping began. I aimed the flashlight toward the trees, my heart racing. "Show yourself," I whispered, half hoping and half fearing the response. I watched for several minutes. The tapping morphed into rustling, something moving quickly among the bushes. I knew I shouldn't follow it, but curiosity clawed at me. I stepped off the porch and ventured toward the source of the noise. Then I noticed something glinting on the ground. As I bent down to take a closer look, I realized it was a piece of jewelry, a necklace, tangled in the roots of a nearby tree. It was old, the metal tarnished. That's when I noticed the symbols etched into the pendant, mirroring those on the trees. Panic washed over me. I dropped the necklace, backing away. As I turned, the air shifted. Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, and all at once, the tapping stopped. I was not alone anymore. The trees felt thicker around me, and shadows stretched impossibly long. My breath quickened as I turned in every direction, trying to spot what lurking presence had taken hold. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen. That's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows, its outline barely visible beyond the moonlight. It took a step toward me, and I stumbled backward. I didn't know what it wanted, but I was about to find out. I could barely take a breath as the figure moved closer. I could make out a shape, tall and thin, with something long and draping in front of it. My hands trembled around the flashlight. The beam flickered at the edges of the looming form, but my instincts urged me to shine it straight ahead. "Who are you?" I called, my voice breaking. Part of me hoped for a rational explanation, a lost hiker, maybe, but deep down I knew that wasn't the case. The figure paused and tilted its head, the shadows shifting around it. The moon cast an eerie glow on its face, revealing a ghastly mask of white. What looked like painted symbols adorned its features, similar to those on the necklace and trees. I felt a chill creep along my spine, tightening my throat. Then it spoke. Its voice was low, almost a whisper carried by the wind. "You shouldn't have come back." The words wrapped tightly around my chest. I stumbled backward, but my foot caught on a root and I fell hard on the ground. Panic surged, and for a moment all I could think about was escaping. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. The figure took a step forward. "You've been marked," it said, repeating the chilling phrase. I turned and ran, my instincts kicking in. I didn't care where I was going, I just wanted to get away from that thing. The trees rushed past me, their branches like claws trying to snag me as I dashed through the underbrush. I could hear its steps behind me, deliberate, slow, as if it enjoyed my fear. As I burst out of the thicket and back onto the cabin's porch, I fumbled for the door. I could hear the creaking of the floorboards behind me. I slammed the door shut and locked it, gasping for breath. My pulse raced, pounding in sync with the frantic thoughts in my mind. I had to document this. I found my camera on the table and began to snap pictures of the darkness outside, but my hands shook too much to get a clear shot. Still, I needed something to prove I wasn't going insane. I grabbed the flashlight and directed it toward the window. Nothing, just darkness. But I knew. It was out there. Then I remembered the necklace. I ran to where I had dropped it earlier, grabbing it from the ground and holding it up to the moonlight. As I examined the symbols etched into the metal, I felt the air grow heavy again. Was I really marked? My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden thud against the cabin wall, making me jump. The sound repeated, heavy and insistent, shaking the timber around me. I turned, panic rising again. Whatever had watched me from the shadows wasn't just content with lurking anymore. I had to know what it wanted, but did I dare find out? My mind raced, battling between fear and curiosity. I felt the walls closing in. Then the door rattled. I froze, realizing that whatever was outside was ready to come in. The rattling intensified, each shake of the doorknob sending fresh jolts of terror through me. I backed away, clutching the necklace as if it would somehow protect me. My back hit the wall, and I had nowhere to go. The thuds against the cabin wall grew louder, echoing in unison with my heartbeat. I glanced toward the windows, praying I wouldn't see that figure staring back at me. But I couldn't resist. I had to look. I moved to the window closest to me and peered through the darkness, my heart racing. Everything appeared still, hanging in a heavy silence. Then I noticed something on the porch. A shape, half covered in darkness, lay just out of reach. My breath hitched as I squinted to see it better. The moonlight barely caught a glint off the surface. Whatever it was, it didn't belong there. The door rattled again, louder this time. My instincts screamed to stay quiet. I turned my back to the door and took a step toward the darkness outside. I had to know what it was, even if it terrified me. I held the flashlight high, aiming its beam at the porch. That's when I saw it. A small wooden box, intricately carved with symbols that matched those on the necklace. I felt a chill as realization swept over me. It was a ritualistic offering. My instincts longed to leave it alone, but curiosity was a siren call I couldn't ignore. I crept closer, shining the flashlight down at the box. It felt like time slowed. The air around me grew thick again, and the weight of some unseen presence pressed in on me. I could hear muffled whispers, almost melodic, flowing from the direction of the woods. Just as I reached the edge of the porch, the door crashed open with a violent swing. My heart raced as I whirled around. A shadow appeared in the doorway, tall and menacing. I could make out the same painted mask, the same haunting symbols glistening in the moonlight. "Leave it," it rasped, its voice slicing through the night air like a knife. Frozen in place, I barely moved. The box called to me, an instinctual urge screaming for me to approach it despite the danger looming behind me. But the figure took a step forward, and I couldn't resist the overwhelming fear any longer. I darted away from the porch and into the woods, heart pounding against my ribs. I could hear the footsteps behind me, quickening. My mind raced. Why was it so desperate to keep me from that box? What was inside? Branches tore at my clothes as I ran. Everything felt disoriented. I had no sense of direction, only the need to escape. I stumbled through the underbrush, but a loud crack echoed behind me, and I knew it was closer. Then there was silence. I stopped to catch my breath, my body trembling. Was it gone? Had I lost it? Suddenly, I heard a soft whisper carried by the wind. "You shouldn't have come back." A shiver ran down my spine as I realized this was just the beginning. I pressed my back against a tree, trying to silence my breathing. Panic clawed at my chest as I strained to hear. The sound of my heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out any other noise. Had I really lost it? Then I heard it. Soft footsteps crunching on leaves. They were close. I dared to peek around the tree trunk, heart hammering. The figure stood just beyond where the moonlight spilled through the branches, shading its features. I couldn't see its face clearly, but the mask seemed to gleam in the darkness, reflecting something sinister. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, and I ducked back, pulling my legs close. What did it want with me? The box? Or was it about something deeper? My fingers caressed the necklace resting against my chest, grounding me for a moment. I needed to think. Was there a way to confuse it or hide? Glancing around, I spotted a dense tangle of bushes a short distance away. Maybe if I could reach them without being seen. Quiet as I could manage, I crept along the base of the tree, inching toward the safety of the thicket. Each step felt like a dare against fate, but I couldn't let fear paralyze me. The whispers grew blurry, swirling in my mind, and I clamped my hands over my ears to block them out. Suddenly, a twig snapped underfoot. My heart dropped. The figure turned sharply toward the sound, its body tense and alert. I froze, praying for invisibility. But in the silence that followed, I could almost feel its gaze pinning me in place. After what felt like an eternity, it relaxed and stepped back, but I could hear the mutter of its voice mix with the wind. "You're not the one." What did that mean? Who was the one? Curiosity flickered like a dying flame inside me. The figure turned and moved away, the weight of its presence fading into the night. I didn't wait. I bolted toward the thicket, pushing through the branches, desperate for any cover. I could feel the earth beneath me soft with dampness, the smell of moss and the chill of the night creeping in. Inside the thicket, I crouched down, trying to silence my heavy breathing. The whispers returned, drifting through the air like wisps of smoke. They were clearer now, a language I couldn't understand, yet somehow felt in my bones. Then, as if the woods themselves held their breath, I saw something gleaming next to me. The flashlight. I dropped it in the rush. I snatched it up, my fingers trembling as I turned it on. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing the small clearing I had stumbled into. That's when I noticed the symbols. Drawn on the ground, arranged in a circular pattern, were the same markings as the box and necklace. A sickening feeling twisted in my gut. The realization sank in. This wasn't just about me. I was part of something much bigger and much darker. Before I could process it, the whisper returned, louder this time, thrumming in my ears. "Join us." A chill raced down my spine. I had to get out of here. I turned, but as I ran, the trees seemed to close in on me, blocking my escape. Fear clawed at my insides. The forest was alive, and it didn't want me to leave. My legs moved before my mind could catch up. I pushed through the thicket, branches scratching at my arms, but I didn't stop. I had to get back to the path. I could hear whispers trailing behind me, almost like they sang my name. "Join us." It followed me, echoing in my mind. As I broke free from the underbrush, I stumbled into a wider stretch of woods. Moonlight flooded the area, and the scattered beams illuminated the trees, casting eerie shadows. I looked around, disoriented. Where was the path? Panic rose again, threatening to consume me. I had to stay calm. Just then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. The figure from before. It stood far enough away where I couldn't see its face, but instinctively I knew it was watching. I held my breath and pressed against a tree, desperately hoping it hadn't seen me. What did it want? An exchange? A sacrifice? My heart raced as I remembered its words. "You're not the one." Who were they waiting for? Questions swirled faster than I could sort them out. I was just an ordinary person caught in their nightmare. The thought gave me a tight feeling in my throat. I turned slowly, searching for another way out. The last thing I wanted was to confront that thing again. Then I heard a rustling behind me. My heart dropped, and I spun around, aiming the flashlight in the direction of the sound. The light flickered over the underbrush, and there, illuminated for a moment, was a symbol carved into the tree. It was one of the same markings from the clearing. Heart. Pounding, I took a step forward to examine it. The twisted lines seemed alive, pulsating in the light. A chill danced across my skin, but something about the symbol caught my attention. It seemed to form a shape, a head with horns, like the figure had been wearing a mask. Suddenly, a thought struck me. If the markings were connected to whatever was happening, maybe they had power. Could they offer me a way out? Before I could think it through, I reached out, fingertips brushing against the rough bark. An electric sensation shot through me. The whispers from earlier intensified, flooding my mind. Join us. They were calling me now, louder and more insistent. I was losing my grip on reality. I pulled my hand back in a panic, stumbling backward. The rustling grew louder, as if something was approaching. I had to make a choice fast. Do I investigate the symbol further, or do I run? In that moment of hesitation, the forest shifted. The air thickened and shadows danced around me. My instincts screamed to flee. I turned and dashed deeper into the woods, branches clawing at my clothes. I needed to escape whatever was closing in. But as I ran, a chilling realization began to dawn on me. The paths were changing. No matter how fast I moved, the trees twisted to keep me trapped. I felt it. The woods were alive, and I was their prey. Then, everything went dark. A flashlight flickered out, plunging me into pitch black. I stumbled, panic surging. I couldn't stop now. I sprinted forward, but I had no idea where I was going. And then, out of the silence, I heard a voice whispering right beside me. "You're just in time." In that moment, I knew I was trapped. I stumbled blindly through the darkness, the weight of the silence pressing in on me. I held my breath, terrified of what might be lurking in the shadows. The voices had faded, but that didn't ease my anxiety. I wished I could shake the feeling of eyes upon me, watching from the veil of night. Panic clawed at me as my feet flew over the uneven ground. I tried to stay focused, but every rustle made my heart race faster. I cursed under my breath for not thinking straight when the symbol's energy buzzed through me. I had to find something familiar. I pressed on, feeling the dense underbrush around me. Suddenly, I noticed a faint light flickering in the distance. Hope. Maybe it was a way out, someone to help. I began to move toward it, pushing through thick branches and leaves. But as I neared the glow, I froze. It wasn't a natural light. Wisps of pale fire danced in the air, swirling in a pattern. It looked like a campfire, but it felt wrong. Too still, too inviting, yet sinister all at once. That's when I saw them. Shadows shifted and stirred around the light, figures standing still, faces hidden. They looked like the thing that had watched me before, their forms indistinguishable in the glow. I felt sick. Who were they? What were they waiting for? I wanted to back away, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I clutched my flashlight tightly, the light trembling in my hand. I cursed myself silently for even approaching. I couldn't just stand here. I had to decide. Then I noticed something on the ground, half buried in leaves, an object. I leaned closer and gasped. It was a piece of wood, carved deeply, with the same symbol I had seen earlier. Was it a warning? A marker? Before I could think, a voice rang out, clearer now. "Come closer, traveler." The hairs on my neck stood up. It was eerie. There was an unsettling familiarity in that voice. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was moving before I could convince myself otherwise. "Leave me alone," I shouted, fueled by fear. My voice broke the stillness, and the figures hissed in unison, their heads snapping toward me. I turned and darted back into the woods, branches snagging at my clothes. I could hear them moving, their whispers rising in frenzy as they pursued me. "You can't escape. You belong with us." Their laughter rang out, echoing like a haunting melody. I barreled through the trees, heart racing. I needed to find that path. I could feel the woods constricting around me, branches swaying as if trying to grab me, pulling me back. I pushed harder, driven by sheer desperation. Then, out of nowhere, the ground dipped sharply beneath my feet, sending me tumbling. I rolled down a hill, scraping my palms on the rough earth. When I finally stopped, I lay still for a moment, catching my breath. Everything around me was dark. I could hear the laughter fading, but I wasn't safe yet. I had to get to my feet and move before they found me again. As I rose, I spotted a glimmer of moonlight ahead, piercing through the foliage. It was a clearing. My heart leapt. Maybe I could find an escape. But as I stumbled forward, a chilling thought struck me. What if it was another trap? What if stepping into the light was the last thing I did? I hesitated, frozen between fear and hope. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, but also sensing the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. The moonlit clearing looked serene, but the memories of the figures and their whispers haunted my mind. I crept forward, every step deliberate and cautious. As I entered the clearing, the moonlight bathed the ground in pale silver. The trees stood tall around me, their shadows elongating like fingers reaching into my space. It was supposed to feel safe, but it didn't. I scanned the open area, looking for any signs of movement or danger. Then I saw it. A strange structure loomed in the center of the clearing. A stone altar, worn and covered in moss. It was marked with more of those symbols that I had seen earlier. My pulse quickened as I approached. Why was it here? Who made it? My fingers brushed the cold surface, sending a shiver down my spine. Suddenly, I heard a rustling behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. No one was there, but I could hear the faint whispers again, circling the clearing, weaving through the trees. They seemed to be getting closer, and my resolve flickered. I started to back away, but my foot caught on something. I stumbled, and before I could catch myself, I fell to the ground. The flat stone felt cold against my skin, and I felt the panic rise again. I needed to get up and get out. As I pushed myself up, I noticed that something had rolled out from beneath the altar. It was small and round, glimmering faintly even in the dim light. I reached for it. It was a smooth, metallic coin, etched with the same symbol of twisted lines. There was an energy about it, a pulse that sent a jolt through my body when I picked it up. This wasn't just a trinket. It felt alive, like a tether to something bigger. Then, from behind me, the hissing voices grew louder, filling the air with a dissonant symphony. "Return what is ours," they said, and I felt the very ground tremble beneath me. I turned my head, peering into the shadows, desperate to see what was coming. The figures were back, emerging from the darkness, their forms more defined this time, eyes like glowing embers fixed on me with a hunger I wished I could ignore. I didn't have time to think. I shot to my feet, the coin clutched tightly in my hand. They wanted it. They needed it. But I couldn't just give it up. Not now. I dashed towards the edge of the clearing, not looking back. My heart thundered in my chest, a primal rhythm urging me to escape. "Stop! You'll regret this!" Their voices echoed, pulling at me like strings. I burst past the trees, branches scratching at my arms. I plunged into the maze of darkness, with only the flickering memories of the figures urging me onward. But in the depths of that fear, I realized I had something that might change everything. I didn't know what they would do if they caught me. I didn't know how this would end. All I knew was I had to find a way to use the coin, to understand why it was so important. Then something unexpected happened. The ground beneath me shifted again, and I stumbled into a strange crack that opened before me, gaping and dark. It felt like another trap, and it was too late to stop my momentum. I plunged into the abyss, the world around me swallowed by darkness, and the last thing I heard was their haunting laughter, echoing behind. I landed hard on a cold surface, the impact knocking the breath from my lungs. My surroundings were pitch black, and it took a moment for my eyes to adjust. I was in a narrow underground chamber, the walls of rough stone pressing in on me. I scrambled to my feet, breathless and disoriented. The coin was still clutched tightly in my palm, its smooth surface radiating warmth. I could feel that energy pulsing again, stronger now. I had to hold on to it. I looked around, searching for some source of light or any hint of where I was. Then I noticed it. A faint glow emanated from the far wall, illuminating a series of hieroglyphs etched into the stone. The symbols were intricate and seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as the coin. It was as if they were linked. As I moved closer, I heard the whispers again. They were different this time, more coherent, overlapping each other like a haunting chant. "You must choose," they said, echoing in the small space. I could feel a chill creep down my spine. They await your decision. What were they waiting for? My breath quickened as I turned back to the entrance, half expecting to see the figures spilling into the chamber after me. Instead, the darkness remained still. But the air felt charged, almost alive, as if it were holding its breath just like me. I focused on the glowing symbols. Maybe they would explain what was happening. As I traced my fingers over the carvings, a sudden rush of fear washed over me. It felt like I was disturbing something ancient, something that didn't want to be awakened. But I needed answers. I pressed on. "Return what is ours," echoed the voices again, louder now. "One will keep, and one will lose." What did that mean? My heart raced as I glanced back at the entrance. I felt trapped, stuck between the whispers and the looming threat of the figures outside. I needed to understand this choice. Finally, the glow from the symbols intensified, almost blinding me. I closed my eyes against the brightness and heard a distinct sound, a latch clicking open. I opened my eyes in shock, and a small door had appeared in the wall, a dark passage beckoning me. I hesitated. What was on the other side? Could it lead me to safety, or was it another trap? But I knew I had no time to waste. The whispers persisted, urging me, pulling at my curiosity despite the danger. Before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped toward the door. It felt like a leap into the unknown. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay ahead would shift everything in ways I couldn't fathom. Just as I reached for the handle, a loud crash erupted from behind me. The shadows flickered, horrifying silhouettes bursting into the chamber, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "You made your choice," they shrieked, their voices a cacophony. There was no turning back now. I had to decide quickly. Would I unveil the mystery linked to the coin, or would I face the figures head on? The weight of the moment pressed heavily upon me as I pushed the door open, stepping into the darkness beyond. I stumbled into the darkness beyond the door, my heart racing with fear and determination. The passage was narrow and suffocating, packed tight with an ancient energy that made the air feel electric. I fumbled ahead, my pulse pounding in my ears as I instinctively clutched the coin in my palm. Whatever lay ahead might be the answers I desperately needed, or a trap enticing me deeper into the abyss. With each cautious step, I felt the atmosphere shift around me. Whispers surged through the walls, wrapping around me like a shroud, their words urging me onward. "Join us." But I pushed back against their pull. I wouldn't become just another voice in their cacophony. Suddenly, the passage opened up into a larger chamber, illuminated by an otherworldly glow. A stone altar stood in the center, covered in the familiar markings, and at its base lay a gnarled tree with roots extending into the earth like skeletal fingers. The symbols on the altar pulsed in rhythm with the coin in my hand, and my breath caught in my throat. This is what they wanted. I moved closer, feeling the energy emanating from both the coin and the markings. I could hear the soft whimpers of the figures outside, the shadows waiting just beyond, their anticipation hanging in the air like a dense fog. Were they locked out, or merely biding their time for me to make my decision? "Return what is ours," the whisper sounded again, this time forming a choral echo. Their meaning was clear. They were waiting for me to surrender the coin, the very object that had linked me to their world. But a flicker of rebellion ignited within me. If I could offer up the coin, what would it cost me? What would I lose in return? It dawned on me that my safety was less important than the knowledge I sought. What lay on that altar was not just a piece of stone. It represented a connection to something monumental, a choice between understanding or fear. I stepped forward, feeling the pull of the altar resonate in my chest. "What do you want?" I shouted into the air, demanding an answer. The glow intensified, brightening to near blinding. The figures outside, unseen yet ever present, stirred in anticipation. "Choose," the voices spiraled in a haunting harmony. "One will keep, and one will lose." I glanced at the coin, the warmth fading as I held it closer to the altar. It was a choice, a decision between self-preservation or unwinding the mystery I had been ensnared by. I could feel the weight of history pressing down, the ancient rituals entwined with fate itself. "Is it worth it?" I whispered to myself, caught in the tug-of-war between instinct and curiosity. I imagined what power the coin could hold, the secrets it could unveil. But a truth loomed large. Perhaps it was my refusal to join that kept me alive, and relinquishing the coin could mean losing my own identity. With a shaky breath, I set the coin down on the altar, my heart pounding. The glow flared up, enveloping the room in a brilliant light. A rush of wind rolled through the chamber, and the whispers swelled into a crescendo. The figures outside surged, but I held my ground, determined to face whatever price I might pay. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and I felt an intense pressure build in the air. All the markings on the altar began to swirl, as if they were coming alive. "You have chosen," they sang, blending into one haunting voice. My thoughts spun wildly. What would this mean for me? Before I could process it further, the chamber erupted in thunderous sound, the walls trembled, and the whispers turned into screams of joy or rage. I couldn't tell. The figures pushed their way into the chamber, their forms solidifying, swirling with the energy of the altar. They lunged forward, but a barrier seemed to hold them back, their hunger palpable. Then, in an overwhelming rush, I felt something shift within me. The power I had unleashed connected back to me, filling my veins with a warmth I had never known. Perhaps I hadn't just offered something up. Perhaps I was reclaiming a part of myself that had been lost to fear and shadows all along. The figures hesitated, their expressions shifting from anticipation to confusion. They were no longer the ominous entities threatening my existence. They were... Wait, I could see their intention transform. They wanted me to guide their cause, to lead them beyond the darkness. And just like that, the atmosphere shifted again. The pressure within the chamber began to stabilize, ebbing away like smoke in the wind. The figures, now seeming almost human as the markings faded from their features, looked at me with something resembling hope. "What have I become?" I murmured, glancing down at the altar. My heart raced. I was entwined in mystique and power. But was it truly a blessing, or had I just sealed my fate? The voices grew softer now, almost a lullaby. "You are free, traveler. You are one with us. But your journey continues." They faded into whispers, retreating into the shadows once more, leaving me standing in the center of the glowing chamber. I exhaled, chest heaving. I had survived, but what lay ahead remained an enigma. Every part of me still recoiled from what had just happened, yet a strange sense of belonging settled in. I was free, but I was also forever marked by that night. I knew I couldn't go back to my old life. Something had shifted. A bond forged in shadows connected me now to those woods. I stepped back through the door, re-entering the cavern where the night still clung like a shroud. The whispers faded but resonated in my mind. I didn't look back as I navigated the path through the woods. A part of them always pulsed in me, living in the chaos. As I stepped into the moonlight once more, questions lingered, a haunting reminder that even in survival, the shadows would always hold their secrets, waiting for the curious soul willing to uncover them once again.